seriously wants to get invested and take up stock market investing as a career option, where should they start?
Look at the investing as a business, and the stocks you buy as you're buying a piece of the business, not a price action. A good investor is one who knows the value of everything and the price of nothing, perhaps. But most investors know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. 2-5 लाख से कुछ हुआ नहीं रियल एस्टेट में, तो वो नहीं कर सकते हैं आपका। फिक्स डिपॉजिट में करोगे तो इन्फ्लेशन खा जाएगा आपको, तो आपको इक्विटी में ही रहना है। यू नो द चॉइस, इक्विटी रहना एंड लर्न टू कंपाउंड। आप ये सोचो कि मैं 3 साल में उनको डबल करने का और कुछ नहीं चाहिए मेरे को। मेरा 2 लाख है तो 4 लाख होना चाहिए, 4 का 8, 8 का 16, 16 का 32। सडनली ये बहुत बड़ा कीमत हो जाता है।
Someone in their 20s and 30s, if they were to get a roadmap of how to become the future Mr. Damani.
शेयर बाजार में एक बहुत बड़ी रूल है कि आप गलत 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 सही होना चाहिए। ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि आप सही 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 गलत होना। So you want to make all your mistakes early in life and then get it right.
As someone who's dealt with and seen many highs and lows of the markets, how have you built that resilience to be able to ride?
तो हिस्ट्री बताती ना आपको, अयोध्या हुआ, कारगिल हुआ, कम्युनिस्ट गवर्नमेंट आई, ग्लोबल फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस हुए। आप नहीं सोच सकते उससे ज्यादा ही हुए हैं, लेकिन इंडेक्स 800 से 80,000 है। So the fact is the equity markets go up, spend more time up than down. The trick is to
Case like Rakesh Jhunjhunwala ji, if he had paid more attention to his health, different story.
Work-life balance is good if you're working in a corporate job. If you're trying to build a business or trying to build something substantial, I think this is all idiotic talk. You need to work, work, work. What are you going to do with work-life balance? You got to build something that your children will be proud of, that you can look up, let's say. So if you start, say, when you're 30 and you retire when you're 60, that gives you a 30-year window in your life. And if you get 10 doubles in that time, you actually make 1000x the wealth that you started with. So my urge to younger investors is to buy.
Hello and welcome everyone to the India Opportunity Show. I'm your host Shrishti. My guest today is a legend, someone who I deeply respect and admire, and someone who actually helped me get started with my investing journey in equities and stock markets for the first time. Today it was a very special moment for me to host him on the show because he's been a dream guest for me ever since I started. Mr. Ramesh Damani. You know, honestly, I started investing in equities because of you and RJ. So I have to credit you for that. And I think it's the same for thousands of Indians today who've started their journeys in the stock market because of you. So thank you.
Those are such kind words, Shishti, and I'm so happy to be a part of your journey. And thank you so much for inviting me on your show. Again, thank you so much.
Ramesh, when you started 30 years ago, you felt like you were late to the India opportunity. And at that time, the market cap was roughly around $110 billion. And today we are sitting at $4 trillion. And some people might have the same feeling that, you know, we are late to the India party. But I've always heard you say that India's next decade is going to be the best one. So what are your thoughts about India's next 30 years?
Fascinating question, Shishti, to start off with. I did feel that actually when I came to India in the 89, there was a big boom in cement stocks at that time. And I was a freshman MBA and knew nothing about cement companies. So I thought maybe the boom has passed me by. Without realizing it was just the tip of the iceberg. The next 30 years will be more exciting. And now as I come full circle, as I have aged, I ask a lot of my peers, what has been the best investing decade for them? Was it the 90s when India liberalized? Was it 2000, the technology boom? Was it 2014 when Narendra Modi came into being? And almost to the person, they tell me that the next decade is going to be the more exciting one. So, for example, I grew up in the 89. I came of age in 89. I grew up in the 60s, 70s. And the India that I grew up in is a very static India, growing at 3%, socialist economy, inward looking, not believing in trade. Not the very, very best of us went out to America to work in other jobs because the pay was better. So you always had a static view of the Indian economy, that nothing will change out here. But the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. And after that, all the countries were forced to change. And I think India also changed along with it. So my generation became the golden generation, the lucky generation, because you could take advantage of the liberalization that offered. We came of age in 89, 90, just as India was liberalizing. So it took great advantage of that. So the next 30 years are very exciting in India. As India emerged in the global economy, the tariffs were going away, Manmohan Singh gave a liberalized budget. So India has come a long way. So I realized very early on that the past is not prologue, that the future can be different. So when you look in the stock market, look at the windshield, don't look at the rear view mirror in order to figure out what's happening in the world. So I think when I look in the windshield, I think there's a very exciting time in India. India is making rapid strides in terms of digitization. Yeah. I always call it the 3 Ds that are propelling India in the future. One is D for digitization, one is D for demographics, and one is D for democracy.
I was listening to this podcast by Ray Dalio today in the morning, where he was talking about, while promoting his new book, that America can actually go broke, or America is at the brink of bankruptcy. Does that will that cause a shift in global order, in your opinion?
Basically, questions above my pay scale. But let me tell you something that I feel very strongly about. One of my passions in private life is to follow the U.S. Presidential politics, because that's my passion. I follow that very closely. Every president since FDR in 1930 to recent Trump election, I've followed and read and been very interested in. And I've never seen a situation as we're experiencing now, where a US president is going to become not the last emperor in China, as the famous movie said, but the first emperor of America.
What was the vibe in during that budget when you were there on the stock floor when Manmohan Singh announced those reforms?
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, I think it was July 24th, 1991. I think in retrospect, India changed that day. I mean, that was just, economic historians will write the period, the history of this period. They will say it was pre-1991 and after 1991. And I think he recently passed away. And I'd like to pay tribute to Dr. Singh. I think the India that we live in today is in a large part due to the absolutely iconic measures that he undertook. And I think you understand life, you live life forward, but you understand it backwards. I don't think we clearly understood the impact of what he did at that time. But it's a changed country thanks to the policy framework that he did in 1991. I mean, we understood it was something big. We didn't quite understand how big it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And Warren Buffett always talks about an investor should think about having a punching card with 20 holes in it. And you really need to get just 4 or 5 right in terms of decisions to be able to get really rich or create generational wealth. And you also have several examples of that in your portfolio. But which are the top 4, 5 which you would pick as your top investments?
Do the test that he said, have only 20 punch cards, is almost a superhuman task, because we're always in front of a screen, always an idea floating by. So I don't think I've been able to meet up to that standard. But one thing I have learned, that the various bull markets we had in India, we had a bull market in 92, we had a bull market in 2000, bull market in 2004, and then the Narendra Modi bull market began in 2014-15. So you had 4 bull markets. Each bull market must make you stronger. And if you can identify the leadership in a bull market, you'll end up making the maximum amount of money. For example, 92 was led by cement stocks, as you know. 2000 by the tech boys. 2004 by the real estate, the consumption stocks. 2014 by the India liberalization story. India became a middle class story. So each bull market, you need to try and identify the leadership in the bull market and try to build a position in that leadership. And that will probably make you the best money over time. So I've been very fortunate because I pay a lot of attention to these things. So while 92 we completely got wrong because I was new, I didn't understand what cement was going on. By 2000, I figured out this trick that there are new horses for new courses, new bull markets with new leadership. So you bought into the technology stocks in 2000, you bought into the consumption stocks in 2004. And this time, of course, we bought the public sector stocks, which all have worked out magically.
Yeah, and you are always somehow able to identify which are the sectors which are about to turn. And I remember this famous interview of yours where you spoke about the liquor industry at that point, and also then the defense industry. What emerging sectors are you most personally excited about today?
The question is, how do you identify that thing? I think Warren Buffett has taught us that very closely, that you're never right or you're never wrong because the crowd agrees with you or disagrees with you.
Yeah.
You're right because the facts are with you and the reasoning is with you. And that I've taken to heart. I try to do my own work. It's very important in this business to do your own intellectual thinking.
Absolutely.
A bad investor is one who knows the price of everything, but the value of nothing. A good investor knows the value of a business that he values. And I think I've always tried to do that because I've learned that from some of my peers, that is how Rahul Dravid batted. He took each ball on its merits. So you take each idea on its merits. You don't try and go with the herd or go what's popular or do what's fashionable. You involve each ball in its merits. So I think we tended to do that. Where do I find excitement for the next 20, 30 years in India? I think this is still an ongoing bull market. It's been a very steep correction, but I think it's just a correction. So the public sector stocks will still continue to lead the market higher. I think there are very interesting opportunities even today in the financing companies and the construction companies within the public sector stocks. But another sector that I've become quite bullish upon is what I call the digital sector in India, because we've gone to use a cartoon example from the Flintstone age to the Jetsons age. Yeah. That is from the rock age to the space age, basically. India was an analog country. We had physical phones, we had a physical marketing system, and before our very eyes, it has been transformed to a digital country. And we've become leaders in digital, whether it's in payments, whether it's in KYC. You're far ahead of other Western countries, also digital payers. Now, all that digital infrastructure, digital layout will require digital infrastructure. So companies that are prospering by providing those services, I think it's a good area to look at.
Yeah, I think this similar trend we saw in the 90s in the US as well, right? Where the tech stocks pretty much displaced the banking, retail, FMCG stocks in the top 10 indices. And then, it's been the Magnificent Seven, which has conquered the index in some way.
I mean, I think from what I read, they now 7 stocks are 30% of the S&P 500's market cap,
which is like 40% now after NVIDIA.
Which is an all-time high, which is very difficult, to remember such a concentration of what's going on. It is a bit dangerous to you, such concentration in 7 companies, if you will. But I think India has not reached that stage yet. So I think the digital infrastructure layout will be good for right pickings.
And, a lot of founders also watch this show. So if someone was to pick a sector where they want to build a startup in, which are some of the sectors that you think would potentially become those kind of opportunities for India? Are there any sectors that you particularly feel excited about in the startup world?
I mean, my job is not necessarily to try and find a new business, but try and bet on people who have found the new business. Yeah. So I look more at, an entrepreneur. But also we want to make sure that the business is well valued, that it's not very expensive. I think you can give N number of examples of a great business that continued to do well, but it was valued so high that the stockholders didn't make any money. So I think that, people who invested in the railroads after they were found didn't make any money, or there were so many airlines that went bust, or so many car companies. I think America had 500 car companies, they're down to 3. So, you don't necessarily make money just because an industry is going to do well. You have to find a business that is well valued. So I spend more of my time trying to find that valuation and value mismatch, the gap between intrinsic value and stock market value, and try to profit from that. And it's a very important lesson to learn in the market. Just because something is new or exciting or a shiny, bright object, as I say, won't necessarily make you money.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about the new age tech IPOs which have happened?
Valuations sometimes are a bit frothy for me. So I think the market is well into this hype of AI, well into this hype of, e-commerce businesses and all that. I would be happy to bet on those companies because they're good digital models that will happen. But I somehow find sometimes the valuations are a bit stretched. So I'm a more cautious investor. So I'd rather wait my chance. They're good businesses, they're just not good valuations.
Absolutely. And I think price is the most important criteria that you have always highlighted and talked about.
Valuations, yes.
Valuations, yes. So when you think about, taking a contrarian bet, because a lot of young people also don't understand how to really hone in on their skills. When you're in your 20s and 30s, you're also filled with so much self-doubt that you can't really feel very confident about investing and going all in one opportunity, right? So how does one become a contrarian thinker? How does one train their mind to become a contrarian thinker?
It's very important to do that, but it's what I told you what Warren Buffett taught us, that, and a lot of my work and speech comes from Buffett and Munger. So please excuse that, because I'm an unabashed admirer of the investing philosophy. So, which I told you earlier, that you're never right or wrong because the crowd is with you. You're right or wrong because the facts and the reasoning are with you. Okay. So if you do the facts and reasoning, you do your homework, I think you'll be able to find good ideas to play on. For example, to give you an idea of contrarian bet, the recent example of the public sector stocks that worked out so well for the investors, the early investors in defense and railways. If you look through those companies, they were trading at 0.1 times order book, 5-year visibility, PE of 5, and dividend yield of 5%. The only question was that if these guys have a party and no one shows up, what are we going to do? But the market doesn't work like that. Typically, when the earnings come through, the party starts happening in the market. And these companies have delivered earnings year after year. And what has changed, that what the market missed perhaps in that, is the corporate governance in these companies has changed. I think when Narendra Modi's administration came into power, he decided that he's going to fix corruption and fix the corporate governance issue. So all these companies have got a dramatic change, and investors are caught unaware of that, because that typically happens. You use the old jaded view, what I said, using the past as prologue. What happened in the past will happen in the future. But I have had very good experience with the public sector stocks, even going back to the 90s when Manmohan Singh was the finance minister. he prioritized a bunch of PSUs. And I remember looking at them and finding such gems as CMC, Bharat Electronics, Bharat Earth Movers. They all today are 200, 300 baggers if you account for the dilution that has taken place. So we bought these stocks at the pennies. So I had a good experience with the 90s, which I carried for again in this 2010. So part of life is doing your homework, and getting ready for when the opportunity meets. Let me give this point because I think it deserves some more explanation to it. Charlie Munger often talks about a guy called Max Planck.
Yeah.
He won the Quantum Prize for mechanics, and he was feted by the German citizens. And after a few speeches out there, going to his last speech, the driver said, your speech is long and boring, but it's so easy, even I can say the whole speech. So in the next stop, which is Munich, he says, yeah, you wear my chauffeur cat, I'll wear your coattails, and we'll give the speech. And he gave a flawless rendition of Max Planck's speech. The chauffeur gave a flawless rendition. After that, there was a question and answer session. And some physician asked him a very ghastly question, but the chauffeur had no idea. But he was not one to give up. He looked at Max Planck and said, I'm surprised that among the learned citizens of Munich, this is such a simple question. This question is so simple, even my chauffeur can answer this question. And he turned it over to Max Planck to answer this question. The point is not to explain to you how good Max Planck was, but the point was to explain there's two kinds of knowledge. There's knowledge that you have that Max Planck has, this detailed knowledge of quantum mechanics, and there's rote knowledge which the chauffeur had by just memorizing a speech. And I would urge all youngsters who are interested in a career in the stock market to develop that Max Planck knowledge, that nuanced knowledge. It's very important in the stock market to do your own homework, do your own thought process, not carried away. A good investor is one who knows the value of everything and the price of nothing, perhaps. But most investors know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. So it's a very iconic moment to come through and understand that. But I would urge all young investors this is a long-term business, not a business for a year, 2 years. You must make a career out of investing and compounding.